lunch. Thank you for coming to our Fireside chat. And I'm just absolutely delighted to be speaking with Chin Yin, whom I call my friend. I've known her for more than 2 decades, and I first met her in 1999. And those were the days when, you are combing through the CVs using your fingers. And I picked up her CV because I saw that she liked to throw frisbees on weekends. So it's not about her skills, but really about, what she did on weekends. So I've known her for 20 plus years. We have a very unique relationship. And, she's gone on to do various stuff across many industries. And today she's the Chief People Officer of Grab. As you know, some of you, if you order your food and you take your taxis, the Grab company. So, Chin Yin, yeah.
So we met in 1999. I graduated and Carmen was working at SAP. SAP was a company that I really wanted to work for. That was also during the financial crisis, just coming out of it. And it was difficult to look for a job. And I actually interviewed with her and her manager at that point in time. Could you speak a little bit about what your impression was at that time?
Well, I think you came across as very thoughtful. You listened well, and you were very keen on the job. And so we had a good interview, and I moved you along the interview panels, right?
And then what happened?
And I think my HR boss said, I don't think you should hire her because I think she's quite hard to manage. And then after that, the headcount freeze came. So that was the end of our professional, dealings at that point in time through SAP, my ex-company.
And that's why our mentor-mentee relationship is unusual, because we've never worked with each other. But we have seen each other through our careers and all the changes. You've actually opened more than one door for me in terms of, sharing job opportunities and referring me to the companies that was looking for an HR person. So maybe we can start with a little bit about that. Can I ask you a question first?
Sure. I know you're dangerous, but bring it on, yeah.
So for a lot of people, especially with the younger generation these days, they ask a lot around, how should I plan my career? The HR people here are going to ask, what should I do now? What should I learn next in order to have a career in HR? What's your journey like?
Well, it could take 3 days to go through my journey, but I think there were a few considerations. I think most of us, if you stay in HR, you either love it or you hate it. So for those of us who love HR, that's the assumption that, why we have stayed, right? So I love HR, and I really, believe in the power of what we can do through the function. And so during that time in the 1990s, Singapore was very buoyant. So there were many jobs. Every few months, we'll get calls. And so many doors will open. And I think that, I would look at the role, and if it's interesting and there's career growth and opportunity, I was in a hurry to really grow and, really learn as much as possible, but really, to make the best of my 20s and 30s. So I don't think I really planned a lot, but I just, say, okay, what can I learn? And whatever I could learn, after a while I got bored, and so it was time to change jobs again. Not very good advice. But I would say that looking back now, right, if you are in HR, there are a few principles that I would, consider. First of all, do you like what you do? And HR, we have many sub-pillars. You must really enjoy what you do and, be passionate about it. For me, it's not just a job where I pick up my paycheck, but it's a vocation, it's a calling for me. Because my impact can be exponential, through the interaction even with one individual or one company, or now, we look at institutions. So you must enjoy what you do. And second thing is, you must be clear about who you stand for and what you stand for, your purpose, and what you're trying to accomplish, right? Through even that small, simple task of maybe either, sending that email or coming out with that program, because you touch not just your employee, but you touch the families, that are behind them. And you really make an impact. Every time you promote somebody, somebody's lives change, or you bring somebody from overseas, it's a major move. So I think you need to be clear about your purpose, be very hungry about learning new things, and yet being able to work in a team to make a collective impact, because it's really not about you and yourself.
Agree. Did you have actually very difficult choices to make in your career? One thing I wanted to share with you, when I looked from you from afar, right, because we've never really worked together, there were two things that you just shared with me. It wasn't something that you said, oh, this is what you must do. You were just sharing your personal experience. And two things stuck. One, you were an executive sponsor for a business sales related account. And you basically showed me that for an HR person to be successful, you really need to be a business person first. That's number one. Number two, again, I'm not really a very ambitious person, but you showed me that you could take a global role based in Singapore, which was very, very unusual at that point in time. Want to tell us a little bit more about those two different experiences?
Yeah, I think the first one, I was a key account director for a top oil company in China, and my Asia Pac president during that time, this was about 13 years ago, he expected every member of the leadership team to not just do your functional role, but to carry a key account. So I was thrust into that business role, had to carry a quota, bonus KPIs were tied to it. I had very little time to think actually, but to quickly, dive straight into it, learn, the way we do deal management within the company. And because, in HR, we always sit in at sales reviews, right? So I kind of basically knew what he was asking. But I had to go through the rigor of learning to run sales reviews with my president. And, speaking in my second language to manage, right, my account team entirely based in China. So I think that was, if I were to look back, it's really a baptism of fire, experience that really defined, my own professional growth. Because, in HR, we always talk about the business, but until you dive into it and do it right, then you look back and you say, oh, actually, it's actually very different. Talking about it and actually doing it is very different. So it was extremely challenging, but yet extremely intense and fulfilling. The second example, I think, was that global role. The company was going through quite a bit of reorganization of the HR transformation, team, right? So for a moment, I had my entire APAC team. The next moment, I was going to be just an individual contributor, to be the global head of the software business unit that I was partnering with. Now, that's a massive mind shift because straight away, I had to let go of my entire team. Straight away, I had a different client group that was entirely, out of Singapore. They were all Europeans and Americans, based out of Singapore. And to do a Singapore, global role out of Singapore, it basically meant that you got to work 24/7, travel to LA every 6 weeks, stay there for 2 weeks, turn around, come back, and then go on night calls. So I think, when I look back, right, I mean, if I were to do it all over again, I think perhaps, I wouldn't change certain things, but I've benefited so much because it was such a rare opportunity. And this was like more than 10 years ago when you don't really get many global Asian female leaders having that kind of opportunity in HR. So I really, I'm so blessed, yeah. And so, I think it's my time to ask you a few questions, right? So you went through a few career changes as well, right? So one day, when I was out buying lunch at Kyong Sik, I think it was 2015, Chin called me up and said, hey, there's this company called Grab that I am considering, Grab Taxi during that time. So I'm considering to join that company. So if you remember that conversation, what were you hoping that I would tell you when you called me up?
It was a difficult phone call. Maybe I can give a bit of context. I was with a company called CSC, now renamed DXC after the merger with HP Enterprise. And actually, Carmen was the one who introduced me to the CEO of in Asia for DXC. And she was the one who opened the door, being my reference as well, to be honest. And I got the job, to me, in part because of Carmen. And so it was 7 months into the new role. No, actually a little bit more at that point in time, maybe about 1 year into the role. And she was the first person that I called because I said, I need to be accountable to someone who have given me that opportunity and opened that door for me. So when I called her, it was it was scary because I didn't know what her reaction is going to be. And what I hoped was to get a sense of a blessing, as well as a sense that I'm not making a disastrous decision. Grab Taxi at that point in time, this was in 2015, very, very small. Maybe, I don't know, 20% of the people have used that app at that point in time. Have you heard of that company when I spoke to you about it? But I just wanted her sense whether it's something that was worth pursuing. And her first reaction to me was not positive. She says, Chin Yin, there are a lot of, interesting opportunities out there. Because the way I told you was, hey, there's this very interesting opportunity. I want to talk to you about it. You said, Chin Yin, there are many interesting opportunities out there. So, can you just do what you do and stay where you are, kind of thing. And I just said, okay, listen to me, okay? So I described the uniqueness of this role is in tech, which at that point in time, there were not many tech startups. It was a global role, and I had the chance to design, because a lot of the things that we used to do in regional roles are always taking and at most customizing, right, and configuring. And it only took me 5 minutes, and her stance changed immediately. And you just say, Ma, okay, go for it. I'm like, okay, yay. And that's our kind of mentor-mentee relationship. We don't have a formalized, like weekly, monthly, quarterly meetup. We don't. This last 2 years, I've not seen you at all, right? But it's that moments of, I just need somebody to make this together with me, whether it's about something I want to roll out, whether I should, put out a big policy. I just need a person who has no holds barred, has no, somebody who's an outsider, but who can see things very clearly, to just bounce off some of my ideas with me.
So you made the right choice, and here you are, right? And I'm sure the journey hasn't been easy, because I could see, how Grab has gone public recently, and she's managing a new season of challenges. But at one point in your career, you went overseas, yeah? Yeah, and you were doing a role in Shanghai. Tell us a little bit more about that. Yeah.
The role in Shanghai is also because of Carmen. So I joined a software company because actually, I came back from, not working for a short period of time, and I told her I need a job, right? And she can't give me the job, and she said, hey, I can introduce you to someone who I think is looking for someone. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in a role in a software company. And 2 months later, my manager at that point in time said, I need to send you to China. Now, the context is that was 2003. I've never really been to China, and I didn't know what I was going for. But to anybody here who have not had a stint outside of Singapore or outside of your home location, it is invaluable for me to be able to work in China in those times. What it taught me really was not so much just working there, of course, trying to understand culture. And I was covering, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan. All look Asian, all seem like Chinese, but actually, culturally, they're very, very, very different. The politics in the company, the maturity of the people, what they look for, very different. So it taught me a lot in adapting and learning very, very fast. But I think it's the resilience in working in a Chinese market, and the hustle there. They talk about 996 now. I can tell you at that point in time, we were working 24/7. And that kind of hustle and hunger is something that sort of stayed with me. The ability to stand up for yourself and to be able to literally shout back at the taxi driver, the shifu if you need to, or I literally grabbed somebody out of a taxi before, because there was no queuing system. There was also no Didi at that point in time. And you just need to be able to, in a very unsheltered environment, stand up for yourself and to be able to live. So those were things that really, beyond the job, that opportunity made me who I am. And I think that was, for me, a game changer in my career.
So that shaped you for what is to come downstream, yeah?
Yeah,
Okay.
very much so. Very, very much so. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you have mentors?
Yes, I do. I have a few.
And how did that come about? And how do you choose your mentors? Do they choose you? Do you choose them? How should people think about that?
I think because I've been around for a while, all of them, they are Americans, they are Scottish, they are Indians. They're all my ex-bosses. And I think over the years, we have become friends and, we can be very open and transparent. And every time I go to them, because there's a need, right? I need to check on something. I need to get a new perspective on an issue. I needed to learn certain things. I needed to grow in a different way. At different junctures over the last 20 years, these 4 or 5 individuals have helped me to answer some of the difficult questions that I've had at work. And I think, that is just so invaluable because in HR, we, try to help our employees to grow, right? But we ourselves have to grow. And I think sometimes we have to grow faster because if you don't grow faster, your teams cannot grow, right? And it's always that lid, right? If you put on your team, if you don't grow. And the second thing is your leaders will not be able to relate to you if you don't grow at a pace where you can convince them, you are as good because you understand the business. Never mind that you may not run the business. So I think these 4 individuals, 2 are in HR, 2 are in business, and they have played such a critical role. So for example, in recent years, I've been doing a lot more board work. So they have been my referees, they have been my sounding boards around how to deal with that group of the stakeholders. And so, to answer your question, yeah.
Are there, you've had many bosses before, right? Not just this 4. What is it that was different about them that you were able to trust them, that you were able to be so vulnerable and open with them?
So first of all, they don't have any BS when they speak, right? No BS. They are just very straightforward people. And they saw something in me that I could never see in myself. When you're in your 20s, sometimes you don't really know, right? Just do, right? Every day, just, right? 12 hours, 18 hours, just work. But the leader could see something in you. So, okay, that's good feedback, yeah, but the job still has to be done, right? So over the years, as I left different companies, I've kept in touch with them. And I think most importantly, I just have that gut feel that I trust them and I can leave, secrets with them, right? So that's very important for any authentic, mentorship relationship. Second thing was I really admire people who do their craft so well. So anything in the business that I want to learn, I observe them a lot, right? Strategy, leading teams, talking to customers, right? Coming up, right, with new ideas to go to the market, things like that, right? I learn because I watch by observing and I go and do after that because, they will force me into a corner to do it. So I think, beyond that touchy-feely thing about liking them, you must respect them. And after that, you must learn from them. And ultimately, we have become good friends. I think that's how the relationships have evolved. And I just couldn't ask for more, I suppose, over the last 20 years. Yeah. But coming back, right, to you and I, right, I think, the last few years we've gone through, pandemic and I watched you, right, take the company public during the pandemic and, you have a young family and, Dennis is in the healthcare sector where you've had to pretty much, right, struggle on some days. So tell me, how have you kept yourself sane, over the last few years, if at all?
Yeah. Am I sane? I don't know. My team will probably say I'm not. I feel that the secret of staying sane or being able to come up with real good outcomes, the secret sauce is there's only one thing, two things. One is the partnership you have at home, and that's very, very important. And the second thing is really the quality of your team. And the quality is not just how smart people are, it's not how good people can speak or present. It's really that there is, you hire people who are definitely 100% better than yourself in the areas that they are in. So people always say, right, A players hire A+ players and then B hires C, right? The sense of security in leaders is key. insecure leaders will hire B and C players because they don't want to be they don't want to be overshadowed. But I think what makes things work at Grab and what makes things work is that we value people who are way better than we are in many areas. Two, we ensure that the way we work, continues to evolve and get better and not worse. So in a place like Grab, we've been around 10 years, and there are so many evolutions of our culture that I think large companies will go like, you guys change all the time. I mean, like, is that the right thing to do? But I think it's important to evolve because how a team works together and how it actually will multiply the kinds of output that you can get from, the input. I think those are the really key challenges or the key success factors.
So a few weeks ago, I visited Chinin at her office and I was looking at her workforce and I told her, I said, you are like the mother hen,
Mama bear.
Mama bear. So I said, okay, how does one keep oneself young, right, in that kind of a culture and for career longevity as well?
Okay, when in doubt, wear Crocs. You feel very young. Okay, so in all seriousness, I think I have a very good role model. My mom, I remember, she works for the government. And as the whole digital transformation started, early in the early 90s, I would say, when, people were installing SAP and stuff like that. My mom, like in her 50s, nearing 60, almost retiring, started learning how to come up with a PowerPoint slide. My mom as well is a Chinese educated lawyer. But she struggled through law school, she tells me. And till her retirement, she had English tuition. So she took over my English tuition slot after, I got good enough. And she stayed with my tutor. And her point of view is always, it's not difficult to keep learning. And I have this innate mindset in me is that I will grow young. And Grab is a great place to grow young because the people that you work with are younger and younger and younger. And what's our core job? Our core job is to respond to people's needs and help them across changes that they have to make across the organization, with the business, and so on and so forth. And if you are not in tune with how they are, where they come from, I think it's really, really difficult to do that job well. I also avoid stereotyping. I think it's really not fair to say, oh, this is a generation of a particular fruit, strawberries or blueberries or whatever, okay? I think that if we meet every individual at their level, at their point in life, and be able to solve things with them, I think that's way more powerful. Somebody asked me, what gives you hope these days? I've worked in a company where there were a lot of cynicism. They tend to be made out of a lot of older folks, I'm so sorry, right? And the cynicism sort of grows, and it's actually very difficult to overcome cynicism. I said, I'd rather work with the restlessness of the youth and have the opportunity to help them grow well rather than that. And then the young people, they have a lot of purpose, cause that they want to serve. Sometimes it's a bit misdirected. Sometimes it's a bit, idealistic. But I think that's a good start. That's not a bad place to start. So how do we help them through their idealism to make something that's more realistic and actually helps the world?
I think it's so true because they are the ones who are going to have to live on this planet, right? Deal with all the social issues and all the climate issues that come up. But let's switch gears and look ahead, right? I think, during the pandemic, everybody has had their fair share of resetting, reimagining, what they want to do. So what does the next season look like for you?
I think there's a lot more work that I need to do where I am, and I'm very, very motivated by it. Grab is just such a magical company. It's not for everybody, but it is so purpose-driven that I wake up being reminded why I'm here and why I'm doing what I'm doing. But look, if I look a little bit further, there are there are three things I'm sort of thinking what I want to do. Firstly, I don't think I ever want to stop learning and growing. So at one point I was thinking, hey, maybe I can at some point be financially independent and then go back and apply to be a junior product manager. I think the whole product world is very interesting. I have not had a lot of time, but could I, be an apprentice, be one of those examples of going mid-career and trying to go back, starting in a different area? I think that's one area. The other thing, people have asked me, what is a company that you would quit Grab for? And I said, there's only probably one kind of company. And I say this so openly, I'm a little bit worried, but that would be a company that truly is making an impact on our environment. I think Earth is dying. I think for us who have children, we ought to be very worried. And if I can make an impact there, and there is a fit in terms of the purpose and the culture, that's something that I would seriously consider. How about you?
Me, I'm in a season of trying to reform a lot of things. First of all, reform myself. My mindset, my values. Well, not so much reform my values, but really to rethink, right, what I want my life to be for the next 10 to 20 years. And everything that I do is evolving around the 4 or 5 priorities that I have around my mom, my family, my community, and the friends and the people that I care about, and also my faith. And therefore, everything that I do has to evolve around that. And if they do not, then, if somebody say, hey, are you free to come and do this for us or do that for us or come and join us for that, then it really is how I want to spend my time. And I think that right now there's just so many opportunities for us. I mean, the theme is rethink what's possible, right? I think the opportunities are unlimited now that I'm running my own business and, sitting on a few things and trying to make sense of this portfolio career that I have, which has come sooner than expected, but I'm so happy. I think, for those of you out there that's, has been thinking about what you want to do in the next season, there will come a time when you will not be traveling on business class anymore on SQ. There will be a time anymore that you might not be carrying a, corporate business card, but what are you going to do with yourself? And hopefully you like yourself,
Join a startup, you never get to sit on business class.
Yeah.
And you never have enough money to print business cards anyway.
Yeah, but I'm on a mission really, to do whatever I can to help, my community be better. And I am fiercely passionate about what the function can do through people. And I think we enable a lot of change through people and leaders. So everything I do is, focus on that. And really, I think the last 3 years, I have not spent, as much time as I did in the preceding 30 years as, with my mom. And I think that's very important for me. Because how many more Chinese New Years will she have, right? And so, for me, spending time with her, observing her behavior, understanding where she's come from, is just so important for me. So I go and eat her cooking, twice a week. Yeah.
So maybe we are about to close. What is one advice that you will give HR people about having longevity in this vocation that we have chosen, which is very hard, often underappreciated? What's your advice? How do we keep going?
I think because you must enjoy what you do, right? And when you enjoy what you do, it's not work, It's really like a hobby. Life becomes so much easier because of what you do. But I recognize that there are some very hard days. And, I think all of you can relate to what those hard days look like. And I think that actually, like I said, I never really planned my career. And therefore, as to career longevity, I am very convinced that you must plan for the day where your corporate career ends. And therefore, in the meantime, if you're not learning, growing, stretching, hungry, or I use the word paranoid, right? Then I think, you can set yourself up for some career risk. And the important thing is, nowadays I hear, the young HR people say, oh, tell me what's in it for me first before I'll do it. But, at least in the era that I grew up doing HR, we never really asked what's in it for me first. We just so happy, right? Contributing, doing whatever that's in front of us. And I think that has helped me to be where I am today because I never really asked what's in it for me. I just say, hey, let's do it, because it's fun, right? Or I can learn, or maybe I can contribute. So your mindset around why and how you're going to be very others-centered to serve, I feel like it's very important because content can change, you can pick up your skills, you can have multiple master's degrees, you can go and do all of that. But who you are is really core. And hopefully, when you put your hand, to the mirror every day and you look at yourself, you can be true to your convictions and values because what we do is very hard. I mean, nobody thanks us, right? Nobody writes us email, perhaps, right? Our bosses and all our stakeholders. So when you do that day in, day out, year in, year out, surely you must have some beliefs and convictions about what that means to you. And therefore, being true to those beliefs and convictions is absolutely important. I think this whole morning I saw a lot of new faces and a lot of young people, 20s, 30s, right, in HR. I think, like I said, this is the best time to be in HR. You have a lot of resources that I never had, right? During that time, everything is like tech, what's tech, right? But, I started out in my career, I was carrying a pager. I mean, those of you may not know what a pager is. But now we have everything. We have AI, we have the tools, we have, we have TikTok, we have everything, right? So don't say, what's in it for me? Go out there and say, what can I do, right? One exercise at a time, one project at a time, one community at a time. You'll be very surprised at what you can do, right? Yeah. So one final question for us. What's next for the next 20 years for us? Yeah.
I'm just looking at what's my tomorrow's agenda and meetings.
I know.
Well, maybe you can answer the questions first. I haven't thought about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I celebrate our friendship over the next 20 years. And I think being who you are has helped you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate who you are. So I think that really is the most important thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. We love you to bits, right?
I know. Thank you. And I think I look forward to, whenever I have like crazy ideas, I just shared with Carmen some crazy ideas I have about changing this industry and having to involve the government in changing some of the way we think about work. I'll continue to look to you for a lot of these zany ideas that I have and tap on your network to see how to bring them to life.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Esther. Thanks.